Of the CattleUSA Daily Podcast. Today, we are welcoming back Dan Gerhold with the CattleUSA Insurance team. And we are talking all things markets today. What is going on in the world, just from all standpoints. We are talking everything from kill numbers to the cattle on feed report to just everything else in between today, guys. There's a lot to cover, and we cover a lot in 20 minutes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this episode with Dan and hear it straight from him. Dan, welcome back to the podcast. How is everything? What's going on in the world?
Life is good. Hotter than Hades, but life is good.
It is hotter than Hades.
Yeah.
It's humid. I don't know if Hades is hot and humid, but it's both. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Hitting pretty much large portion of well, I would say all the feeding region, from Texas all the way up. Yeah, it's hot all the way up. I mean, up here in eastern Iowa, it's 99% humidity and knocking on 100 degrees, so it's going to be pretty brutal. Should see might cause a little bit of damage to the corn crop. Not a massive amount, but some guys might see the top end of the yield taken off the way it's going to be like this for the next 7 days. Cattle feeding regions, cattle feeders, feed yards are going to be fighting like hell just to keep cattle alive over the next 7 days since we're not going to cool down at night. It's something we're all accustomed to, but nonetheless, it's not going to be enjoyable. Just a couple years ago, we had some major death loss. Was it Kansas, Nebraska? There was no wind, major humidity, just freak deal, just killed a pile of cattle. I'm hoping we can squeak by, maybe have some breezes to keep that away. But yeah, that's for the weatherman to talk about, not me.
Gotta love it. Well, what's happening in the markets?
Every day seems like we want to set some new record highs. Especially in the feeder cattle market. It's just been absolutely on fire, justifiably so with what cash feeders are bringing. Yesterday I was on the phone with an order buyer and trying to get some heavy 7, light 8 weights bought. Oh my, unbelievable. You can see these things bringing this kind of money compared to where we were just, 3, 4, 5 years ago, or even just last year, how much they've rallied. I mean, I looked at the August feeder cattle chart, Lauren. I got to pull this back up to give you exact numbers because this is pretty remarkable. So when August feeders were listed, the listing price back on August 29th of 2024 was $242.20. Yesterday, our high was $29.07. It is unbelievable. We are knocking on putting $100 on that contract in the last year.
Holy cow. Wow.
I don't think that's ever happened. I mean, add the third of the value in a year's time. Nobody saw it coming. Otherwise, I think everybody and their brother would have been long for this thing. And likely then it probably wouldn't have happened. But nonetheless, that is a remarkable rally. Like I said, very, very justifiable given what these feeders are bringing. Seeing those 8 weights knocking on 350 and, upper 8 weights, 340. You're seeing 9 weights, 320, 330, 10 weights are now in the teens, 3 teens. Just mind blowing. I think everybody's hoping it kind of cools down a little bit, except for, of course, the guys selling. But nonetheless, their buyback's going to be high too. When they look at the next turn, they've got to load up with, seeing those 5 and 6 weight. 5 weights bringing 4+. I think I saw there's some mid 5 weights bring 4, 4.5. Video sale season out west, so a lot of stuff getting sold for forward delivery, September, October, November delivery. It's kind of wild, people really believe in this bull market hanging around. I don't blame them. A big part of it is the demand factor. Demand has just been outstanding. You've had a normal dog days of summer correction here in the beef market, but at the end of the day, I said if we could hold 355, we'd be comfortable, and here we are, kind of stalled out at 370. So maybe once we get past these next 45 to 60 days, we could start seeing us put some money back on that beef market. Got tariff talk resuming, I would assume late this week, next week. August 1st is the deadline. I was happy to see we made an agreement with Japan, so pretty excited. They're a big partner when it comes to the beef business, so hopefully they're going to be willing to buy some beef at these high prices. Overall, there's some good things happening in the industry. We've got some added tariffs on Brazil, so that could help slow down the imports a little bit, which would be positive. I think we're running about 9 or 10% higher year over year on beef imports. So don't want to see that. That it does nothing to help us when we're importing beef. But at the end of the day, when our cow slaughter's been this low, we're not going to make enough burger for the amount that Americans consume. So it's kind of one of those deals. I don't like it, but it's just part of the industry. Overall, like I said, we get past these next 60 days, I'm hopeful our beef can respond and start moving higher. Retailers got some margin back, especially on the steaks. Good to see them make a little bit of money. Everybody gets their turn in this industry. So what I don't want to see is, I don't know if you remember, it would have been early last year, it was an absolute bloodbath in the hog market. That was a big part of it was caused by the retailers. So long story short, wholesale pork prices dropped as they should have going into fall and winter. Retailers improved their margins, but they held their retail prices, especially on bacon. So they were charging, I believe it was $5.50 to $6.50, $7 a pound on bacon. They didn't let that go. Bacon wholesale prices were falling apart. The retailers were taking advantage of it to make money. Like I said, everybody gets their turn, but at the end of the day, it really slowed that consumption. So it did cause a backup. I don't want to see that happen here with steaks. These retailers, if you've been to the grocery store, $24, $25 a pound for a ribeye steak, maybe more. It's not costing them that. So it's that time of year where they don't move a lot of those high-end steaks, but inevitably they've got some improved margins here to work with for the next 45, 60 days. Hopefully we don't completely crush demand with that $20+ steak, getting thrown at the grocery counter. So I'd like to see that. You just got to be patient. It's just that time of year. You got to be patient, be optimistic. It's hard for me to get bearish, third, fourth quarter, especially during the middle of the summer when people aren't growing a lot of steak. They're not growing much of anything other than hot dogs, brats, and burgers. So yeah, just kind of in limbo, sitting, waiting for that. Other than that, it's cash last week, I guess I would call a little disappointing. It wasn't drastically lower by any means, but it was mostly steady. I thought we had a chance to be a buck or two higher, but inevitably packers weren't interested in buying a bunch of inventory, coming into this heat. So the fact we held steady is good. The question is, what are we going to do this week? It's really common for feed yards to want more money going through this heat because the shrink is so high. Their way ups are going to be horrible if they sell this week and ship next week. So I'd like to see feed yards hold out, maybe wait another week. It might get us closer to the knife than what we are right now. And inevitably, we could start working this thing higher once we get past this heat. But at the same time, I remind myself 45 to 60 days of the dog days of summer left. So we've got to be a little patient there.
Yeah, just got to keep pushing, make it through August. The light is at the end of the tunnel. Once September 1st hits, we're all going to be partying and it's going to be great. We just got to make it through August because unfortunately, the way that just like weather has shifted over our lifetime, it used to be like August was kind of like mid-August was the start of fall, right? Now it's like definitely the last week of August, end of August. You're maybe starting to get a glimpse of fall. So yes, going back to boxed beef prices, I think like my one concern right now is I think we're finally starting to see a consumer population that is noticing the big shift in their prices as far as like what is on the counter for them and what is available to them. I know I had a friend this week do an interview with CNN about beef prices and what it is. So we're seeing our major news networks are picking it up. And I don't want that to be something that our consumers are then like now really noticing and like, oh my gosh, I heard on the news beef is so expensive. And then now they're like not purchasing beef, right? Because it's one of those things. Sometimes you can like skate by and a few dollar changes every once in a while can be fine and people aren't really going to notice, like they're still going to purchase it. But then when everyone starts talking about it, it's like, okay, well, we can't get away with this anymore. So it's like we've talked about a million times, it's playing that balance because everyone needs their share within that dollar at different points in time. But it is playing that very, very tricky pendulum of demand versus cost and everything that we're going through right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. The retailers, like I said, it's their turn here. This time of year, it's normal for them to make money. As you get into, September, October, it's pretty normal for the Packers to make some money, and they need to, because it's that late fourth quarter, and early second quarter, they typically don't make a lot of money. So they need to make a little money. Right now, the Packers' margins are really tight. That's why you're not seeing a high kill number. They don't want to be aggressive, fight for the cattle, and make their margins worse. So inevitably, when it comes down to the actual livestock producers, the biggest number for us to watch is that kill number. It's all about that slaughter. Yesterday, I was very, very disappointed in that slaughter number, but at the same time, I got to remind myself, hey, we're in the dog days of summer. Boxes are slowed down, and a big part of that could have been the heat. Guys aren't willing to push the envelope in these packing houses. So it's, you got to be patient, you got to be optimistic. But there's definitely some cause for concern, watching the consumer notice how expensive beef is. So it's nearly every day somebody picks up the phone and tells me they bought pork loin for, under $2 a pound. And like, yeah, I understand, but let's not forget our ribeyes and our T-bones, and come back eventually. But
yes.
Yeah, it's that time of year.
Yeah, go give our pork producers some love. That's fine. You're still eating an animal product, but don't forget about us. Just come on back. We would love to have you in 45 days again when you're ready to start purchasing beef, and we're out of the dog days of summer, and maybe there's some sales going. I don't know. I don't care. Just come on back. We'd love to have you still.
Yep, absolutely. And the other thing I'm watching right now, and it's partly due to seasonals. Cow slaughter has been running low this year. Cow prices are high. Obviously, we're not, like I mentioned, we're not making enough hamburger in this country. At the same time, the rancher is pretty profitable. So what are they going to do? If that cow is bred, let's hold on to her. She might, have a bad quarter, but she can still raise, a $1,800 to $2,500 calf for one more year. So until we get into fall, I don't expect to see anything just completely fall out of bed when it comes to fat cattle or cull cow prices. You start getting into this fall, if we see a big slug of cull cows come to the market, that's going to change things possibly, in that September, October market. But overall, there's also plenty of reasons to be pretty bullish. You got big cattle on feed report this Friday. You also have your biannual all cattle inventory report. Early estimates, all cattle report is pretty blah. Nothing really. We're not expecting, reductions in the cow herd size. The only surprise there I thought was odd is analysts are thinking we're going to see an increase in the dairy herd, but I don't believe it. I think it probably just stays the same. The cattle on feed report, no big surprise. One disappointing thing is we have an extra slaughter day compared to last year, and our marketing numbers expected to be lower than last year, even with that extra marketing day. So that's not bullish by any means, but placements are still down and continue to drop, especially as we get into the next cattle on feed report. Eventually, they're not going to have a choice. They're going to have to report these lower placements, lower on feed numbers, because the cattle aren't there. They can't just keep coming up with them. Mexico border's still shut down. We're seeing feed prices reflect that. Eventually, they're going to have to probably go back and revise some numbers, but inevitably, at the end of the day, the market's telling us how many cattle are on feed.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely been reflected. Everything that the cattle market has gone through over the past 6 months to a year is being reflected now, and we're going to continue to see that. And unfortunately, all of the situations that we're going through this year, we're not going to see just like a nice little trickle down. We're going to see the effects continue to be affected for multiple months. We know how long cattle are on feed. If we're not getting feeders right now from Mexico and we're not supplying that early part of the supply chain, we're going to see those effects come into play, especially in the winter and into next spring and everything that's going to look like. So definitely something to keep our eyes on. And like you said, the markets tell the truth. The cattle on feed report may be able to hide a little bit of it right now. It's not going to be able to forever, but the markets tell the truth, and we're able to watch those and get our insight there. So any other highs, lows, anything else we need to touch on today, Dan?
Grains have kind of once again been struggling here for a while. A lot of eyes on corn and wheat. Producers really need a bounce back. We had some short covering by the funds, I believe. Was it last week or the week? Yeah, it was last week. But inevitably we failed to do anything with it. When I speak to that, you're looking at moving averages and the fact we couldn't break them. You're looking at overall downtrend and the fact we couldn't break that downtrend. At the moment, it seems like the path of least resistance is lower. Inevitably, you're in a seasonal buy time for wheat. Corn is just ho-hum, typically a seasonal sell here. And it's hard to sell it this low because it's below producers' cost of production. There's a lot of corn. Corn looks great in the field pretty much everywhere. All the talk is tassel wrap, and there's a dry pocket here or there, or a wet pocket here and there. Inevitably, the corn looks great from the road. I think that's what traders are going to trade until we actually see some combine rolling in the field and get some yield data. Closer we
Absolutely.
get, I should say, the closer we get, or possibly lower. If we could get December corn, to bounce down to that $4. I think it's a good time for feedlots, backgrounders to book some feed needs. All your other feed needs are super, super cheap. Lots of hay. After this week's rainy spell, there's going to be a lot of grinding hay for these feed yards. Distillers, wet gluten, cake, soybean meal, all of that super, super cheap. So it's good to see cattle producers are getting their turn with cheap feed and high prices. Very much deserved. But inevitably, there's still risk to manage in the other direction as well, not just against the down in the cattle, but also in the up in the grain. So be looking for that.
Yeah, for sure. How are LRP rates looking?
They've been expensive. There was a week there where they got relatively cheap, but they've ramped back up. We've talked before, Lauren, that LRP, it's similar to a put option. It's not the same per se, but it's close. But when you look at the volatility in this market and the fact that it's setting new all-time record highs, 2, 3, 4 days in a row, these LRPs are going to be expensive. If you want to step into a steer contract and go out and LRP, your spring calf crop for February, March delivery is a yearling, you're going to spend 10, 11 bucks a hundred. Not cheap. But at the same time, you're also insuring, 313, 315, come on, guys. That 60, 70 bucks a head is not so bad when you're insuring $2,500, $2,800 a head. It's what I'm trying to say is it's very warranted that these LRPs are expensive. We can't deny that. When I come in and compare it to a put option, that put's going to run you 12, 13 bucks. So it's still more expensive than your LRPs. Inevitably, I think it's a great time. I mean, you're setting new all-time highs. We're always believers in rewarding the rally and step in, add coverage, keep moving your coverage up. Inevitably, this market's going to pull the rug out someday and nobody's going to catch it. There might not be a massive warning sign. These rallies don't always have to end on a big black swan telling you the party's over. We're not going to have a party and say, see you later, bull market. It's just reward this market. Let's get some coverage in place.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, Dan, as always, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it as always, and you sharing just some of your insight and knowledge and everything like that. To all of our listeners out there, make sure that you check out those show notes where we have that link where you guys can go check out our CattleUSA insurance and see all of the current rates and everything that we are offering as a team between CattleUSA and Dan and his team over there as well. So make sure you check out those show notes, and as always, like, subscribe, rate, review. We appreciate it all here at the team, and we will see you all tomorrow on another episode. Have a good one, y'all.